happening is we are literally, again, in our half of the planet, kind of tilting toward our source of light and of warmth and of energy and of nourishment and of fuel. And so it can be a really nice time when the world is kind of sprawling and abundant and fruiting to really invite ourselves to consider, what we want to lean toward a little bit more, what we would like to tilt our way toward. A couple of years ago, the person who was the Surgeon General of our country, of the US, Vivek Murthy, asked this question. And I thought it was such a great question and also so heartening that it came from the Surgeon General of the US. And he said, how might we, just every day in our own actions, tilt ourselves a little bit more away from fear and toward love? And we could, yeah, exactly, Norma. We could add other words or substitute words. How might we tilt away from unnecessary effort and toward ease? Or how might we tilt ourselves a little bit away from constriction and toward opening, or away from separation and toward belonging? So there may be other words or natural impulses that come up for you right now, things that you would like at this time of our whole half of the planet tilting toward light and abundance, what you might like to tilt your physical body toward and your energy toward. And so we'll just play around with that a little bit in our physical bodies and our breath this morning together. I offer really kind of low to the ground, I hope gentle, relaxing practices here, but you should feel free to take or leave anything that I'm suggesting, adapt it to your own body. I don't know if anybody who's here with us live is practicing in a chair. Sometimes I know those who practice with the recordings are using a chair rather than being on a yoga mat. So I've got a chair behind me and I will try to, offer instructions that can accommodate either. Uh, so if it works for you, maybe if you've got an extra blanket around, that could be great. If your Zafu's still around, that could be a little bit of a prop. And if you'd like to rest on your back, on your mat, great. Otherwise, just settle back into a chair. And so I'll tilt my screen a little bit, speaking of tilting, so that you can see. I'll just be up here for the most part practicing along. So if you need a visual of what's happening, you can just watch me. So coming onto your back, if that feels comfortable, if you've got a little extra cushion like a blanket, or maybe your mat is on a rug or a carpet or something that helps you feel a little more comfortable. And then see if it feels okay right here at this big summer solstice time to spread out a little bit. If it feels all right, you might widen your legs and widen your arms, not so much that it feels vulnerable or like an overstretch, just enough that you get to embody, kind of resting down. You could imagine a sunny field or a raft in a river, or a big stretch of pasture or wildflowers, just letting yourself stretch out. Together, we can feel the whole body of the earth beneath us, containing and supporting and holding us here. Whether it's bright and sunny where you are, or whether you're just sensing this lengthening of hours of daylight and sun in the quality of the light on your body, you might take that in. Let your breath be nice and easy. You might simply attune your attention to the miracle of the fact that your body is breathing, kind of exchanging energy with the plants and the trees. And then just to gather ourselves kind of together as a practicing community right now, maybe we can coordinate our breath just a bit. You might exaggerate your next inhale and really kind of stretch through your body as if your inhale is really filling you up, stretching all the way out through your limbs to your edges, maybe to your fingertips and toes. And then you could gently open your mouth maybe and just sigh out your exhale. Let your limbs, your whole body rest back into the earth again. And try that maybe a couple more times as you feel ready to inhale. That stretch, you might sip it in through your nose. You might expand and widen. And then when you're ready to exhale, could be a gentle sigh, and your limbs could soften, and your body can just rest back into the earth. And try that one more time if you would like. Inhale, letting yourself spread. Maybe you spread in between your fingers and your toes, and you widen through your whole body. And then again, just a gentle sigh when you feel ready to exhale. Let everything soften and relax, and let your breath resume. Just a nice, easy, natural pattern for you. You might feel your inhales gently expand out to your edges, brightening, flourishing, widening, and your exhales can be like an effortless resting, back toward yourself, back to your place on the earth. So another round of breath or so, just taking in that expansive energy on your inhales, softening back in on your exhales. Good. Then let's start to move along that a little bit. Maybe your arms are moving up alongside your ears. If you're sitting in a chair, you could just widen your arms a little bit. And in whatever way makes sense to your body, the next time you inhale, see about stretching your right hand and your left foot away from each other a little bit. And then as you exhale, kind of soften back in. And as you inhale, other side, as if your left hand and your right foot, left arm, right leg could stretch away from each other. And then soften back in and let that become just a little rhythmic tug on your body. Every time you inhale, half of that X shape of your body might stretch. And every time you exhale, let it settle back in and just side to side like that, moving energy way out into the extremities of your body, kind of feeling that side to side movement. Wide expanse of light above you, earth below you, breathing in and out, maybe another time through each side. There's never any rush, never any hurry to keep up or move at any pace that doesn't feel natural to you. And then the next time you kind of come back through the middle, you might, if you're stretched out wide, you can walk your legs back in a little bit. Maybe your arms get a little bit narrower and stretch up alongside your ears, and sip in another one of those inhales. And this time, as you exhale, just a big wide circle of your arms, scoop your right knee in. You could even lift your forehead up to that knee and get a little bit more of your body moving. And then when you feel ready to inhale, everything could stretch wide and long again. And as you exhale, your left knee, so your arms and hands are kind of tracing the shape of the sun, and you're just letting this rhythmic movement of your breath kind of guide your body and through really simple action. Again, you could be sitting in a chair, just hugging one knee in and moving that wide, circular, abundant shape of your arms. And every time you exhale, just hugging in toward yourself. And again, maybe another time through like that, each side, no rush, enjoying the spread of your breath, enjoying kind of the cyclical rhythm of your body, reminding you of these bigger seasonal cyclical rhythms that you're a part of. And maybe the last time through when you hug your knee in, doesn't matter which one, whichever one feels natural. Then if your head lifted, you could lower it back down and scoop your other knee up to meet your first knee, and just give yourself a really gentle little sway side to side. A little massage of your low back, perhaps, the ridge of your pelvis. Again, just registering all that big, wide support of the earth holding you here. And then you might even Circle your leg bones around a little bit. They could move in the same direction or in opposite directions. No right or wrong. Just kind of feeling that movement again. All this could be happening from the seat of a chair. Just kind of rolling around through the big, deep joints of your hips and thighs, your pelvis, maybe even a little bit of movement spreading into your belly and your low back, and you could circle your ankles and your feet around a little bit. And then when you feel ready, everything can just hug back in. And take a pause, feel the residue of that movement. And then nice and easy, you could roll over to one side, ease your way up. And take your time. Let's all make our way to a seat. If you've still got your zafu around that you were maybe sitting on, you could sit on that or on a folded blanket. Of course, if you're in a chair, just find that comfortable seat. If it feels okay to you to cross your legs, you could do that. If there's another shape for your legs that makes you more comfortable, feel free. Just embody that little tilting, tipping energy, just with some upright kind of cow and cat movement here. So the next time you feel ready to inhale, you might tip forward the tiniest amount. You could kind of climb all the way up the length of your spine and arch a little bit, almost like your heart is tipping up toward the sky. And then as you exhale, maybe your hands kind of slide down your legs, and it's that little whisper of turning in again. And so just back and forth, nice and easy like that. As you inhale, kind of tipping towards something that feels nourishing and abundant. And as you exhale, just a release of the back of your heart back toward the space behind you. And back and forth like that. It could be that if the movement feels okay with this, that it moves into your shoulders and your hips a little bit. You could exaggerate some of that if that's feeling really nurturing to you, or the movement could stay kind of contained and simple. Again, your body embodying this tipping, tilting movement, this rhythmic pulse of your breath along the movement, and this inviting in of something that in this light, abundant time, you might like to orient and lean toward a little bit more. Maybe one more pulse through like that. No rush. And perhaps the next time you land in that little upright cat tuck with that little rounded in, that bow of your brain down toward your heart, pause there. Then really enjoy climbing back up the length of your spine and maybe sipping in another one of those inhales, this time shrugging your shoulders up towards your ears and pausing at the top of that inhale, all that brightness and abundance and flourishing energy, holding it in for a half a breath. And then a big open mouth sigh. You could roll your shoulders around and back and down, and maybe try that twice more. Inhale, scoop your shoulders way forward and up, sip in a little bit more of that energy. And then a gentle sigh. Feel the whole orbit of your shoulders move around, back and down. One more like that. Inhale, scoop up. Gentle sigh, kind of a full bodied release as you roll your shoulders around and back and down. Just pause. Maybe take in the sides and the back of your neck, softening a little bit. Let's just give ourselves a little shift in the cross of our legs or however you're sitting. So maybe untangle your legs for a minute. You could even lean back and stretch them out, or just stretch them out if you're sitting in a chair. Maybe roll through your ankles again, kind of circle through your feet, and the webbing in between your toes might spread open. And then when you feel ready, if you're sitting cross-legged, you could just recross your legs the other way, or you could rearrange your legs. If you're in a chair, you just come back to a nice steady seat. And again, we'll give ourselves a chance to embody that little bit of leaning, tilting, orienting ourselves towards. So your right hand could come down to the ground. It could be on a blanket or something if you need a little bit more space. And then let your left arm stretch way up. So you're leaning over. You could even bend into your wrists and your wrist and your elbow on that side that's supporting you, and your hip on the other side could ground down. So you feel the whole stretch of your side body, kind of breathing in energy. And then nice and easy, you can push into that right hand to come all the way back up. Maybe both of your arms stretch way up to the sky. And then other side, just nice and slow. This first time your left hand can come down. It can find some support. You can bend into that arm. Your right hip could anchor itself down to the earth so you get to breathe into your right rib cage. And then we'll let all of this start to move again on the rhythm and the cycle of the breath. Inhale up through the middle. Exhale that big, wide stretch and lean and tilt over and down. Inhale back up, and your breath might be moving at a different pace than I'm suggesting or than I'm moving, and that's perfectly fine. You just get to lean and tilt and breathe and take in your side body and your movement through light and temperature and space. Maybe another time or so each side, just as slowly and as fluidly as you would like to move and breathe, and feel your body perhaps relinquish a little bit of tension, especially along the rib cage, the deep side waist. We sometimes tend to get a little shrink wrapped there. And then the next time, again, no rush. When you feel even and come all the way back through the middle, pause there. Even with your arms stretching up, you can still soften a little bit in the sides and the back of your neck. Maybe let your head swivel side to side so you melt some tension in your face, your jaw, your throat, sides and back of your neck. And then see how it feels to swivel your arms so your palms will face out. Swivel your arms so your palms face out. Sip in another big inhale here. And then as you exhale, let it be a slow press of your arms down, almost like they're pressing through water. And the crown of your head is cresting the surface of that water. This is slow drip of your arms down. You might touch the ground with your hands. Feel your body land here again. Feel its response to all the movement and the breath and the subtle inner leaning toward what you might like to invite in. And let's ease our way over to our hands and our knees, if that feels okay for you. Again, you could be sitting in a chair. You could stay sitting. We're going to do a little bit more of that same forward and back movement. And so if that can happen from a seat, if coming to your hands and knees feels okay, you could really feel the presence of your hands on the ground. If you're sitting in a chair or sitting in a seat, you could just feel the presence of your palms on your thighs. And then from here, it might feel nice just to roll around through the whole barrel of your torso. So kind of back to that circular shape, but now rather than moving forward and back, we're getting a little sense of presence kind of around the whole cathedral of your rib cage. And if you're just sitting, you make some wide circles with your torso. This could be real organic, kind of free forms. You don't have to be following any certain pattern. And if you find yourself kind of moving around in one direction, you may decide to help that move around the other way a few times, kind of like an orbiting planetary movement just around that central axis of your spine. And then as you feel ready to bring yourself all the way back through the middle, no rush to get there. Let's go back to that more forward and back lean and tilt, a more traditional cow stretch here, arching through your spine. And then as you exhale and round in, you might hinge back, maybe even all the way to a child's pose. So your low back gets a little stretch. And again, if you're seated, you'll just move back to some seated cat cows, but maybe that fold in has a little bit more length and space to play with. So you're just moving now way down into hips and belly and low back. And maybe another time through like that, nice and slow and easy, so it can really take on a quality of presence. And next time you land with your hips sinking back towards your heels, any form of a child's pose that feels right to you. You could have your thighs together, you could have your big toes together and your knees wide, and then your arms can stretch wide. Again, in a chair, you might just lean forward a little bit, or if you've got a surface in front of you, your hands and arms could be on that surface. And let's go back to that little bit of a lean. Your arms and hands can climb up and over to the right, as much or as little as you'd like. And you can really press that left hand into the ground and sink your left hip back. You're kind of breathing all up and down your whole left side body here. Maybe your brain is just bowing down toward the ground. So it's more embodied, more of a feeling of the energy of the season in your body than a trying to perform a shape. Back through the middle, all the way back through center and up and over the other way. So you get to really stretch your right arm, sink your right hip back, breathe now into the whole shape of your back ribs, maybe your deep low back. And all the way back through the middle. You climb your hands back towards your body. If your knees were wide, you can bring them back together after that deep fold in the knees and the hips. It could feel nice just to stretch one leg out, maybe keep the ball of the foot connected and the heel stretching back. So you're opening up through the tendons, through the bed of the calf, maybe even the hollow of the knee. And you could perhaps hinge forward and back a little bit. So you're feeling that glide along your joints, that tilt forward and that lean back. And again, in a chair, you could simply stretch a leg out and kind of pitch forward and back in any way that feels okay to you. Another breath on that side. And then as you feel ready, you can switch to the other side, stretching open little places that maybe want to lean out of constriction or a feeling of tightness and towards some opening, some melting, some softening. And both knees down, and let's see how it feels to step that first foot forward, just so we're all on the same side. Why don't we say our right foot? Step your right foot forward into a lunge. And here's where in a yoga studio, we'd have blocks. You may have some blocks, or you could use your zafu. If you want to bring the floor a little bit closer to you, you can just put something under your hands. You don't have to do that. If you've got long arms, you may not need that. And then you've got your left knee back, and you could scoot it back as much as you'd like. Again, in a chair, you just kind of turn sideways. So you have some version of the shape. And let's just start real gradually here. You might hinge forward and back a little bit, kind of like a little runner's lunge. And again, you don't have to go very far. See if this can just start to kind of hum along the rhythm of your breath in whatever way makes sense. You might plant the foot down when you lunge into it. You might peel the toes back as you hinge back. And in a chair, it could just be a little forward and back movement. And then you can stick with just what you're doing. If that feels like plenty to you, you can always scale it back a little bit. Another option is to let your arms now start to breathe and move along. So as you inhale, you might draw that big sunshine circle shape with your arms all the way up into that lunge. And then feel that full rotation in your shoulders as you circle your arms. Maybe hinge your hips back. Maybe pull your toes back again in a chair. This could even become more about the arms. You may have a little bit less room to play with in the legs if you're sitting down. Just let yourself breathe and kind of cycle through that. Every lift up through your arms could be that little almost solar panel tilt or lean up toward what you might like to tip toward a little bit more, what you might like to invite in, what you might like to cultivate or even preserve a little bit of it this time when we're starting to harvest things and put them in cans and jars. Maybe one more cycle through. And then the next time you land with your hands down and perhaps that front leg stretched out, you could even scoot that foot forward a little bit. So you could maybe flex it. Imagine that you're going to drag that heel back. That could invite some opening a little bit more in the back of that leg. And then you might go back to that circular action just down in the ankle and the foot, kind of stirring it around one way and then stir it the other way. So then when you feel ready, you can lunge back in, you can move that foot back. Here again, you may want something under your hands just to experiment. You might walk your right foot out to the right a little bit farther. It could even come off your mat. Doesn't have to, but it might. You could even turn those toes out on the right side, like they're making a little bit more of an angle. Sometimes even leaning out to the edge of that right foot feels nice. Your back knee could walk back if that gives you a little bit more space to work with. And back to that wide orbiting shape here in your hips. You might just circle around. In a chair, there are many, many ways to just make this fit your body. You just move that foot out a little bit, that whole leg, circle around a little bit, one direction for a few rounds. And then another direction. You feel ready. Bring all of that back to a still point. Good pause. Step that front knee back to meet your back knee if you're on your hands and knees. Could feel nice to bring your knees and your thighs together even, and then just kind of dip your hips way over to one side, get a little outer hip stretch perhaps, and bring them back through the middle. Let them dip way over to the other side. Let that happen. Side to side, each way, a few more times. Maybe your head just falls like a pendulum back, and sides of your neck might relax. And then just nice and easy, we'll move to the second side. So in any way that makes sense for your body, step your left foot forward. If you're in a chair, just let yourself swivel to the other side so the left foot can come forward. Again, support under your hands if you'd like. Let's start low to the ground if that feels okay. You might just let it be kind of a slow, rhythmic runner's lunge to let the lower body kind of get on board and feel the root system connection to the earth. So there's some support there. Begin to open from. And then at some point, if you would like, your arms can get involved. Again, that big, wide, kind of sunshine, circular motion with that solar panel tip up toward the light and toward fuel and nourishment, and then all the way back down and little bow in where some of that almost gets tucked in. And back and forth like that. And you might feel really feel and take in hydration that's happening in the joints that are now moving. The bigger joints like your hips and your shoulders, little tiny places that are following along, whether that's the tunnels of your wrists, tendons of your ankles. Maybe one more cycle through, no rush. Also, no pressure to be still if you'd like to keep moving, but at some point you may decide to stretch that left leg out. You could even scoot that heel forward a little bit and maybe imagine you could drag it back and see what effect that has on some smoothing, melting open in the back of that leg, and then maybe stir that ankle around, maybe spread into the webbing in between your toes. Swirl it around the other way. And then lunge back in. You can move that foot back. And here's where we do that little wide opening again. So the left foot could move off to the left. It could even come off your mat. You could angle that foot out if that feels okay. You could rock to the outside edge of it. You could adjust where your back knee is. And then just some nice organic kind of free form circles around of your hips here. This gets into other compartments of our hips, different muscular systems of our thighs, especially the inner thigh. And circle it around the other way a few times, just exploring what you find here. What you might want to soften into, or you might want to tap a little steadiness. And as you feel ready, you can bring that back into stillness. Step your front knee back to meet your back knee. Once again, you might bring your knees and your thighs together. And this time, if it would feel interesting to you, you could circle your hips, say way over to the right, and maybe they circle all the way forward or part of the way forward, and then they can circle to the left and back. And you could try that a few times. If your wrists are really needing a break and you'd rather come down onto your forearms and play with this motion, you could do that. Again, sitting down, you're going to just bring your knees and thighs together and see how wide and expansive these circles can be. You can switch that direction when it starts to feel like that makes sense to you. Another breath or so, another big orbit around. And then you can find your way back to some version of a child's pose. Maybe if you're on your hands and your knees, you even drape your hands back by your feet so your wrists get a little bit of a break here. Your forehead could rest down to the ground or onto your zafu or a blanket. If you're in a chair, you can simply fold in and kind of soften your hands and your wrists here. You might even gently fold your thumbs in and let your fingers, just like a little baby fist, let your fingers wrap around your thumbs and just some slow circles around of your wrists, taking that orbiting around an axis way down into some of the smaller, more nuanced joints of the body, maybe circle around the other way. Just one more little movement cycle here. We'll make it like a on the ground sun salutation at this big, bright summer solstice time. If it feels okay, you could rise all the way up to stand on your knees. Your knees might widen so they're about as wide apart as your hips. Again, if you're in a chair, you're just going to rise up to be tall in your spine. Let your arms stretch way up toward the sky again, like you're tracing the shape of the sun. And as you exhale, fold right back in. Your arms again could come beside you. They could even rest in your low back. You might even turn one side of your face down toward the earth. So you get a little tiny, luxurious stretch in your neck, and then all the way back up. As you inhale, rise up onto your knees. Again, you might tip your heart up like you're tilting toward something you'd like to invite in. And as you exhale, other side of your face can come down. Your arms can drape in your low back or rest beside you. And just a few more like that. You can just make it your own little ritual of summer and solstice and tipping up toward the light and leaning toward something you'd like to embody a little bit more. Your breath is expanding you out and up on every inhale and softening you back down. So you're kind of wrapping around your own heart on your exhale. If this feels okay, let's say one more time each side. Just back and forth, expansive, tilting, rising up, and the softening, lowering, folding in. Maybe you're about at your last time through. And then the next time you find yourself folding in, if that feels complete, can pause there. And maybe it would make sense to make a little pillow out of your hands to rest your forehead on. And what that does is it lets you kind of rest the front of your brain down. You might even rock a little bit, like you're just smoothing along the whole spread of your brow line, maybe all the way out to your temples. And as you let that gentle, quiet, rocking movement continue, maybe move around through the hinge of your jaw, cheekbones relax, neck and throat. And eventually, maybe that movement falls still, moving toward that still part of the word solstice. The second half of the word means still. It's like we're suspending for a time in this light and abundance, this opportunity to lean toward what matters to us. And you can ease your way up when you're ready. Let's make our way all the way back toward the place we started, back onto your back. And so again, you could be on a blanket if your head feels like it's really dropping back and you've got another blanket and you want to fold it up and put it under your head, you could do that. We'll finish with a little twist on our backs before we get still again. But like I said, don't be shy if it feels like it's a real drop back and that's the opposite of relaxing. Maybe put a little fold even at the base of your skull just to give you a little extra support. And you can hug your knees back in, maybe give yourself a little sway as you take back in this wide support system of the earth on your body. If you're in a chair, you might just lean back now. Register support and belonging. And then see if it feels all right to put your feet back down on the ground. And maybe even widen your feet if you're on your back out to the edges of your mat. If you're in a chair, maybe as wide apart as your chair. Really feel the spread of your feet in the earth, like you're really connecting your soles with the body of the earth. And then your arms again could widen out a little bit if that feels comfortable. And just begin the softest little windshield wipering movement. Your knees can drip way over to one side and maybe your gaze swivels opposite your knees. And then through that central axis of your body, come all the way back through the middle with your gaze and your knees, and let your knees drip the other way. Your gaze can float opposite. And what's really magic is if you can let this happen on your breath. So your inhales might bring you back to that central axis place. And as you exhale, you get to slowly drift away from it. Knees in one direction, gaze in the other. Back and forth like that. If your hips are craving a little bit more stretch or the front of your belly, you could, as your knees drip right, you could press into your left foot and lift that left hip up a little bit. And you could do that the other direction, kind of inhaling through the middle. Press your foot into the ground as that hip lifts and your knees maybe drip opposite. Another time like that each side. And then the next time your knees kind of drip all the way to the left. No rush to get there. Just pause for a breath. As your knees drip over to the left, your right arm might even stretch up alongside your ear so that whole side of your body can feel the smoothing of your breath up and down the right side. All the way back through the middle. Kind of relax your right arm back down. Let your knees drift to the right and just linger there. And maybe even your left arm moves up alongside your left ear, just to set up a little geometry here that invites some breath to really spread up and down your left side. Cycle of that. Way back through the middle as you feel ready. It might feel nice to heel toe your feet back in, and maybe one last time for now. Scoop your knees in. You could bring your legs close together and have it be a little contained rock. You can again let your knees be wide. You could swirl around through your legs or your feet. And then when you feel ready, you can come back to some variation of where we started. If it feels better to you to have something underneath your knees or to even have your knees bent, that's perfectly fine. Some low backs are happier that way. You could stretch your legs out, widen through your body any amount. Go back to feeling the whole bed of the earth rising up to hold you here. Your body being held by the body of the earth. And that gentle spread and stretch of your energy, kind of feeling the temperature and the light. It's almost a sprawling sense of abundance. It's kind of just naturally emerging in the more than human world all around us. And just feel that effortless tilt toward what matters. There's nothing we have to do. Our position in the cosmos is offering that to us. We don't have to chase after it. We don't have to conjure it. Just rest here on the body of the earth, gently tilted toward a source of light and warmth and nourishment. I'll just back my voice out for just a minute or so to let you rest as you are, fully supported, bathed in light, leaning toward what matters. Maybe you can gently hear those birds through someone's audio. I also hear them outside my window here. This little clarion call to re-inhabit our bodies and reattune to our breath. And feel everything that's supporting us. As you feel ready from there, you might naturally stretch back into your body a little bit. Maybe at some point, take your own time with this. You could hug your knees back in and give yourself a little sway or rock. And at your own pace, in your own way, you could gently roll over to one side, maybe even tucking in that spirit of preserving, tucking in what you'd like to carry with you from this time. And take your time. If you'd like to finish in a seat, you could roll back over to one side. Ease your way back up. Maybe from there, if it feels natural, you could gather your palms together, kind of right in front of your heart. It's a little shape that I like to think of as both receiving and offering. So we just gently bow to each other. We can think of tilting toward what matters. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paige. That was beautiful.
Thank you so much. Um, we have some announcements, unless anyone has any questions or for Paige. So, Intro to Zen is tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. on Zoom. And then next Sunday is our family meditation at 10:30. And next Saturday is Lillian's Desire, Attachment, and Greed Stomach Stories from the East. So that's our.
Who's that?
Lillian.
Oh, Lillian.
And we can give back the merit. May the merit of this practice benefit all beings and bring peace.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Teijo, for inviting me. I'll see you all for the autumn equinox, if not before.
Good.